This is Sky Sports, a part of the British Sky Broadcasting Network.
This week on NHRA Today, Fast Eddie bags another Gator in Gainesville. And John flies through Florida with force. It was WJ all the way in Pro Stock. And Pro Bike gets another first-time winner. From the Frank Hawley Drag Racing School in Gainesville, Florida, these stories and more on this edition of NHRA Today.
In the statistics-conscious world of drag racing, probably the most hotly debated number is a driver's reaction time. Careers ride on the ability to be quicker off the line than a rival. In fact, some drivers have built near legendary reputations on being the best in class. But what many overlook in their bench racing discussions is that reaction time is a measurement of both the person behind the wheel and the mechanical action of the car. Until now, the difference between the two could not be calculated. Hello everyone, I'm Steve Evans and welcome to this rather unusual edition of NHRA Today. We've stayed over here in Gainesville to drop in on the Frank Hawley Drag Racing School, where Frank and a core of Pro Stock's finest are trying to get to the bottom of the reaction time controversy. They're using some interesting technology, which we'll examine in detail, and of course we'll have results from last weekend's Motorcraft Ford Gatornationals. It should be an eye-opening half hour. But first, we have to get a glimpse of what's hot.
Once again, there were some remarkable numbers turned in at the Gatornationals, especially in the terms of speed. In Pro Stock, Warren Johnson bumped his own national record up over the 196 mile per hour mark. The Floppers got a new speed record too. Freddie Neely put a 295 on the board, only to lose the Funny Car semifinal race to John Forrest. In Top Fuel, Scott Coletta became the fourth driver to crack the triple century barrier when he posted a qualifying speed of 300.30 miles per hour.
I'm speechless. I don't know what to say.
Did it feel that fast?
Yeah, it did. It felt real fast. I mean, about 1,000 foot, it just took off, and I saw him a little bit, and then all of a sudden he just disappeared, and I thought,
And that's what's hot.
With me is Frank Hawley. And Frank, every driver, yourself included, has occasionally been embarrassed by a poor reaction time. Did that give you the idea to find some answers, hopefully?
Well, it sure did, Steve, because in my years of racing, I know there's certainly been times when I've gone to the starting line and I missed the light and the bad reaction time was my fault. But I know that there's times when I thought I cut a good light and the reaction time didn't indicate that. So I saw a need to separate the driver reaction time from the car reaction time, and Bob Brockmeyer from CompuLink and myself got together and did that.
You feel that anybody with the proper training can cut great lights?
Well, yeah, from a physiology standpoint, we do have bodies that work the same. Now, whether we do it all the time or not, I don't know, but we do need to have information that can verify that.
Well, this past weekend in Top Fuel, we had some great drivers in some great cars. Here's Big Matt.
One driver who found the Motorcraft Ford Gatornationals doubly exciting was Doug Herbert, because during qualifying, he posted the second 300-mile-an-hour run of his career in his always-on-the-edge sportswear entry. Adding to that thrill, Doug was on hand to see his father, Chet Herbert, inducted into the International Drag Racing Hall of Fame.
Growing up around that makes you kind of try harder because you always, I'm going to be better than the old man, But, he's out of Pomona. We ran 488 the other year, and then we ran 300. He's proud.
Chet was on hand in round one to see the Valvoline entry of Joe Amato meet Doug. In one of the strangest races of the day, Amato immediately smoked the tires, giving Herbert the lead. But a broken blower belt on Doug's car opened the door for Amato, who limped through to take the win. Amato then met up with Eddie Hill, who was debuting a brand new dragster to replace the fabled Nuclear Banana. The new car gave Eddie a slight starting line advantage. That carried him past Amato and into the Final Four, where he then defeated Tommy Johnson Jr. Due to frequent rain delays, the final eliminations were forced into darkness, where Hill's opponent would be the McDonald's Top Fuel dragster driven by Ed McCulloch. At the green, Hill in the near lane seized a hole shot advantage and drove into the Florida darkness, earning his second victory of the year despite McCulloch's quicker elapsed time.
When I cleared the lights, I knew we'd won. and just felt great. And then when I got out of the car and they told me I'd won it on the starting line, that really made the old man feel good.
Eddie's victory places him just behind Winston points leader Ed McCulloch, while Joe Amato is third, followed by Doug Herbert and Kenny Bernstein.
Earlier in the classroom, Frank Hawley re-emphasized the reaction time is now measured consists of 3 events: driver reaction, car reaction, and the rollout of the front wheels from the light beam. He then explained that driver reaction time is also 3 elements: visual cortex, light to the eye; the cortical event, eye to the motor cortex; and the motor event, brain to foot. Well, this past weekend in the funny car category, reaction time and elapsed time both took a back seat to total excitement. Here's Dave McClellan's report.
In mid-March, it's not unusual to find tourists flocking to Florida for spring break and, of course, the Motorcraft Ford Gatornationals. But with unseasonably cold weather, a lot of people's thoughts are turning to an Hawaiian vacation, as promoted by the new Hawaiian Vacations Dodge Daytona funny car of Roland Leong. The driver for the team is 3-time Gatornationals champion Gordy Bonin, who's returning to the funny car class.
Ever since this Hawaiian vacation thing got put together, but I'm high on life. It's like the last 2 months I'm working out. I've never been to a gym in my life. Now I'm working out. I'm drinking lots of water. Scary.
In round 1, Gordy faced Chuck Etchells in the Nobody Beats the Whiz Dodge Daytona. And as the cars left the starting line, Etchells grabbed the lead and sent Gordy and company on an Hawaiian vacation of their own.
We're just new back, but we expected a lot more. We just need a couple more laps in the thing. We had some trouble early, but we're okay. We're okay. Appreciate it, guys. Aloha.
Engine problems in round 2 ended Etchells' day as well, sending Al Hoffman to the Final 4, where he disposed of Gary Bolger. In the finals, Al's Blower Drive Services Dodge met up with John Force's Castrol Olds. In one of the wildest races of the day, Al's Daytona in the far lane pulled a sizable wheel stand, giving John his 2nd consecutive Gatornationals victory and his 3rd of the season.
Well, it was a great weekend, especially for the race fans here at Gainesville, but to come back and win back-to-backs and just to keep on holding on to that points lead, it really is exciting. The car performed great, so I'm really proud of the crew.
John's victory widens his lead in the Winston points chase. Al Hoffman is now 2nd, followed by Cruz Pedregon, Dale Worsham, and Jim Epler.
The driver reaction time system for this test is really pretty simple. Located exactly 80 inches from the front of the front wheel and mounted on the roof is an infrared emitter. Now, this is wired into the existing 2-step switch connected to the clutch pedal that normally releases the rev limiter in actual competition. So when the car is staged, the driver lets that clutch out. This fires a beam instantaneously across here to a receiver. Now, the receiver does 2 things. A, it knows exactly when the yellow was first seen, and B, now it knows when the clutch pedal was released. The difference is the driver's reaction time, and that is printed out here in hundredths of a second.
Fogarty, Whittam, Wright in a high-stakes showdown.
Pushes him out. What a move.
Well,
Welcome back, everyone, to Gainesville, where the driver reaction time seminar is currently going on, and a lot of cars have already tested. They're learning a lot about driver reaction times and something they've never known, the vehicle reaction time. They're given the normal reaction time. Now they have the brand new driver reaction time. Subtract the 2 and you know how hard the cars leave compared to one another. It's fascinating. Right now, though, let's find out how the Pro Stocks, both 2- and 4-wheel, did on this very asphalt last weekend. Here again is Dave.
The 1993 Motorcraft Ford Gatornationals marked the 8th anniversary of the modern era NHRA Pro Stock bike class. And this year's field included Pizza John Mafaro, who won that first race back in 1985.
I was using a stock frame then. We had a little 8-inch rear tire on the bike, no computers. I mean, the technology and the competitors, it's come so far now that it's like a dream come true for me. That's why I'm still out here racing. I mean, these young kids they're on the gas here.
One of the young lions who's been on the gas is 2-time Winston champion John Myers, whose Star Racing Suzuki proved too much for Pizza John's Kendall entry.
In '89, a kid came out at Indy and been giving me trouble ever since. We'll be back. I got a lot of work to do.
In the Final 4, Myers met up with a Florida native, David Schultz, and in a battle of Winston champion, Schultz's Sunoco machine in the far lane overpowered Myers and moved him into a final round match with John Smith. When the lights flashed green, Schultz in the near lane held a sizable reaction time advantage, but it was not enough, as Smith ran the quickest ET of the event to take his first ever national event win.
Well, I thought Dave taught me a lesson on the starting line there, but I got around him about the end of second gear. It was a pretty good feeling.
That win put Smith on top of the Winston point standings, followed by Ron Ayers, Lance Boyer, and John Myers, with David Schultz rounding out the top 5. The four-wheeled Pro Stock final came down to a clash of cutlasses, pairing Warren Johnson's GM Performance Parts holes in the far lane against Larry Morgan's Castrol Super Clean entry. As the cars left the line, Morgan drifted near the wall and was forced to lift, giving Johnson a repeat Gatornationals victory and one that lived up to his expectations.
This is one of these races that everybody just groups together and pulls in one direction, and we came through.
The win solidifies Warren's position atop the Winston point standings, with Larry Morgan second, Mark Powick third, followed by Kurt Johnson and Scott Jeffrey on.
Many of the Pro Stock participants from last weekend have stayed over for this special session. A few minutes ago, I talked to some of the drivers about their impressions so far.
It's really exciting. It's certainly enlightening, not only as a driver, but for the crew chief as well, because that old controversy, are you late or the car slow, will be answered today.
Well, I think it's real exciting because it gives us a better idea of how to tune the car and how to coordinate the driver and the chassis.
Maybe I got a little bit to go here. I got to go back and practice a little bit.
It's not necessarily all the driver's fault, as this information is starting to show.
It's really showing us what's really going on in one of these Pro Stock cars.
I think we're all trying to learn something by it. I hope that we can learn something by it.
Pretty quick, huh? Well, so were the Sportsman drivers this past weekend. Here's Bob Fry's Gators report.
Things were sort of different at the 24th Annual Gatornationals. I mean, take, for instance, the weather. Not exactly what the Florida Chamber of Commerce wants you to see. People bundled up on the first day of spring. I mean, nothing's what you expected to see. You expect to come out and find 140 Super Comp cars like this. Good-looking, rear-engine, long wheelbase dragsters. And you wind up finding something that looks like this, that you'd expect to see maybe at the Indy 500, not at Gainesville.
We get quite a few looks and quite a few laughs. Some people say it's not safe to drive, but with the shortness, it's 125 inches. It's longer than a regular body car, but shorter than a dragster. And it's consistent. It runs real good. We've run 811s with it at half track, so I think we can come into something where it's going to work good, and it's nice to drive. It's easy. It's like driving a go-kart.
The Super Comp cars went from looking like go-karts to looking like top fuelers. I think Beverly McAllister needs to get Big Daddy to give her a swamp rat number for this dragster. And David McCarthy's been taking notes on wings over in the Garlops pit area, too. The cars weren't the only thing that were a little bit unusual at this event. I mean, you expect to find drivers that look like this, but what you don't expect to find at a race is a driver that looks like this. This is Mary Blake, part of the husband and wife team racing here at the Gatornationals.
I taught her how to fly. She's flown small Tomahawk airplanes, and once we got into the car racing, I taught her how to do the drag racing, and since then she's taught me a little bit about it.
When we got down to the Super Comp finals, things weren't so different after all. For the third consecutive national event, a different person with the last name Richardson won. This time it was Scotty Richardson in the far lane, defeating the very tough Bobby Taylor Jr. You guys are just going to gang up on the rest of them.
I hope so. If one of us don't get you, the other one will.
Now, here are the rest of the winners from the Motorcraft Gatornationals. For NHRA Today, I'm Bob Fry.
The latest news from the world of drag racing.
We're all used to buying our racing souvenirs out of a little bitty tent or maybe a trailer. Well, that could be changing soon because the Sports Service Company, the company that handles all of NHRA souvenirs, has come up with this transportable building, and it is really some kind of a structure. It's got a huge aluminum frame. You can see all of these girders that bolt together and vinyl walls stretched over the frame. It is completely climate controlled. The downside of this thing is it takes 15 people 2 days to put it up and another day for the sales crew to bring in all of the displays and the merchandise. But I think it's still going to pay big dividends on one of those hot sweltering days in Indianapolis or when the occasional monsoon hits Englishtown, New Jersey. As you can see in its debut appearance, it is a very busy place. We are back at Frank Hawley's drag racing school. And Frank, this session has a lot of people scratching their heads. Mechanics trying to figure out how to make the car take off quicker, and drivers going, how can I improve? It's worked.
Well, that's what they were my suspicions, and that's what we built this for, so that eventually it'll be an NHRA competition, and everybody from the bracket racers to top fuel drivers will be able to get that same information.
What can a driver do besides practicing on a porta-tree?
Well, we're working on some programs down here, and if they came to visit us, then maybe we could help them out.
Well, we hope a lot of them come. It's an interesting program.
Thanks very much.
Right now, as promised at the top of the show, Big Mac Dave McClellan goes to driving school.
When people think of Dave McClellan, they usually think of a race announcer, a television commentator, and one of the biggest drag racing fans on the face of the earth. But it's always been a dream of mine to actually get in the seat of a top-notch professional race car and take it for a spin. It was that dream that brought me to Rockingham, North Carolina, home of the Roy Hill Drag Racing School. Roy has worked with the best and earned a reputation as a top-notch instructor.
Warren Johnson, I helped him out. Scott Jeffron, I helped him out. I can't say my way of driving is perfect, but the results I've had with people that I've taught is second to none.
School started with a classroom session covering the basics of the cars, giving students insight into Pro Stock's tricky suspensions, careful adjustments for weather conditions and other problems associated with the naturally aspirated engine. Then with Roy riding along via a radio headset, it was time to get me behind the wheel.
I can talk to you, but you can't talk back to me. That's the way I like it.
As Roy went through the cockpit orientation, I began to see how much is involved in piloting one of these powerful machines. Finally, with a stomach full of butterflies, I was ready to try some burnout.
Some people say it's like a boot camp. It's tough here. It's not easy. But we deal with the people that come in here and we give them all what they're looking for. And that's a lot of fun. And the ones that really want to be serious, we can make race car drivers out of them.
Whoa. Haven't been worried about making a run yet, but the burnouts, it takes a whole lot more concentration and a lot more procedures than I would have ever thought. It looks so simple sitting up in the tower announcing these guys doing these long smoky burnouts, and they make it look so simple. But trust me, it's a lot harder than it looks.
Roy's approach takes you through the quarter mile step by step, starting with a first gear launch, then the 8th mile, and finally the quarter. Unfortunately for me, it took a little time.
He's scaring me. Still had the line lock on, guys. You see that? Cars everywhere. You can't be doing that.
One thing's for sure, at the Roy Hill School, you certainly learn from your mistakes. After my line lock trouble, Roy showed me what went wrong both on the track and later through video analysis. Finally, I got my second chance. After the 8th mile pass was successful, I was ready to try the full quarter mile. It wasn't easy, but with Roy's help, somehow I got to the finish line. And I had a great time in the process. Plus, best of all, I earned my NHRA Pro Stock driver's license.
Your wife's going to be proud of you.
I hope so.
Steve Gibbs, eat your heart out.
Oh, it's fun.
Woo.
Boy, are we proud of our guy, Dave McClellan. He not only got his license, he also had a great time. But I wonder if his reaction times were close to those scored here at the clinic by the pros. Here's some of the better ones. Thanks to Frank Hawley for this first-time information. Well, we're out of time. Join us next weekend live from Rockingham in the annual Winston Invitational. Saturday, we'll feature Sportsman racing from Hallsville, Texas, and on Sunday, live final round coverage from The Rock. It's going to be a great weekend, so join us here on TNN. For all of us at NHRA Today, I'm Steve Evans.
NHRA Today is a presentation of Diamond P Sports.